Hey, magical makers! It's time for another episode of Knit a Spell. And this week, Katie is going to tell us some of her favorite guest moments from season 2 this past year.
That's right. A near impossible task, as I'm sure you are relating to, since next week's episode features some of your favorite moments.
Gosh, we really had some tremendous guests this year. What I love about these episodes is you get to listen to this summary of some of our favorite moments. We have so many other favorite moments. We couldn't fit all of our favorites, and these are in no order.
They're not in any order, but in the order of which they appear for easy chronological ordering. And don't forget, we also have an entire first season that also includes guests, but we definitely had a lot of guests on in this past season, including one month where it was entirely deck creators, so tarot decks and oracle decks, and so
Right.
how do you choose? It's impossible.
Can't. All of them. I choose everyone.
If you wanted to listen to every guest episode that we have one after another, you can do that just by going to our YouTube channel, which has a playlist of all of the guest episodes from Knit a Spell. That's a great way to do it. You can blow through them, and they're a lot of fun. Like Jim said, so generous, sharing their wisdom. It's really appreciated.
And you can also listen, of course, on any podcast app or however you listen. If you are listening, why don't you pop in really quick and leave us a fast review? Do you know that reviews really help us a lot? Consider it a birthday present to Knit a Spell. Since why are we doing all this? It's Knit a Spell's birthday.
Woo-hoo.
It's our birthday.
Great point.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell.
I'm magical maker Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
And the craft. Who are we starting with, Katie?
All right, so because, like I said, I had to go in order of episodes, I'm starting off with, episode 53, which features my brother from the Barbecue Central show. He is a no-brainer to have on the podcast because it was all about podcasting. He helped us get started, and he offered us guidance to make our viewing experience and listening experience way better for you all. Greg generously provides words of wisdom regarding the craft and the business of podcasting in this clip. Enjoy.
Things that make a podcast unlistenable for me. It's going to be lackluster content coupled with poor audio. That makes me unsubscribe or not subscribe if it's just a click in to see if I want to. That will make me either unsub or not sub very, very quickly. To me, what makes a good podcast, as we circle back to what makes me unsub or not sub, content. Content is king. As I told you before we started recording, I will suffer through a technically poor podcast if the content outshines the deficiencies. But for me, that's far and few between. But there are some out there, as I had mentioned, and sometimes I'm compelled enough to reach out to those folks and say, hey, I know you're new. I've gone through these learning curves. I want to help you because your content is so good, but you sound like such shit. Let's fix that because that's easy. You've got the hard part aced. The content's good, just like you and Kate. Making you sound good was easy, but you have the wherewithal and the expertise and the content to really keep people subscribing and then coming back and listening. So that's very important. Obviously, as I mentioned, audio quality is directly after content. And again, it's so easy to sound good these days. And you don't have to be an audio wizard to do it.
Right.
When I got into this in 2006, as I was mentioning, there was no one to lean on for assistance. There was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of, I sound really good this week until I found something else to do the following week. And then I sounded better the following week. Those are like my two biggest things. And they're kind of interrelated. What makes me listen and what makes me not want to listen, they're both tied together.
If you've ever considered starting a podcast, do not miss this episode in its entirety. It is episode 53, Podcasting, with my brother, Greg Rempe, as he is a well of knowledge in this field. Don't miss it. Up next features a clip from guest author Kat Cole, who wrote Psychic Skills for Magic and Witchcraft.
Yes. Oh, one of your favorites.
And as someone who reads a lot of metaphysical books like you, I've rarely connected with point of view as much as I did with Kat's book. And in this clip, Kat sheds light on a particular gripe that she and I both share when it comes to people who ask for advice and don't listen.
What?
Yeah, you know the feeling? Have you ever been there, Jim?
No, never. And I've never asked you for advice and not listened.
Yeah, ditto. I think you'll appreciate Kat's perspective on this topic, much like we did. One section I definitely wanted to talk about, speaking of sections that you probably had to fight to get in here, are about the psychic paradoxes. I thought when I read this that this was like a term out there, and then Jim was like, I've never heard of this before. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, perhaps you coined this term. So could you explain to our listeners what that is exactly and why you wanted to put it in the book?
The phrase, what they do not tell you, pretty much captures it. Because that, like I said about the meat of the book, that is everything that is not spoken of in other books on psychism, the reality of what it's like having psychic skills is paradoxical. It can be so varied and so vast and so contradictory and so confusing that it paradoxical is about the only word that captures it. And it's rarely spoken about. So one of the things that I talk about is people don't want to know the truth. They ask for the truth, but they don't want to know the truth. The reason they don't want to know the truth is because, one, it shocks them when someone completely unknown outside of themselves sees them more clearly than themselves. This scares them. And so the initial protective stuff comes in and they reject or dismiss or disbelieve or say, This is where having psychology and psychism together is beneficial.
So helpful.
Mhm.
Yes.
And as a reader per se or psychic, you can see that. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I see these two things. But it did take me a long time that some of that stuff is claircognizance. I say a type of precog in the book, but it's actually claircognizance, where you become aware of another person's truth and you know what they're about to do and say and how that's going to come out. And you can tell that person all day long, they'll deny it, you know, or they'll say, yeah, maybe, you know, oh, that's interesting. Nobody could be exactly right about me and there's free will. Okay. But it took me a while to realize that isn't just for them. That's for me too, to be able to see it coming, because they're going to come back to me and go, why didn't you tell me? It's like, dude.
I was so happy to hear this and your explanation on like, well, it's just for you to deal with the fallout that is going to be inevitable by them not listening to the thing they asked for, didn't ask for, or whatever. I mean, it still kind of like makes me, because I like want to fix everything all the time, but that really helped me deal with like, why won't you listen? I don't know.
That used to be such a big thing for me. I would scream about it. I'd get so mad.
Yes.
And I would cuss. And it's like, why have this gift if this is the case? What is it for?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
and that is how I realized this is what it's for. It's for you to know that, oh, this is coming back at me. Oh, all right. And wow, that just smooths so much out for me. And it has made my life so much easier. And it allowed me to in my neurodiversity, allowed me to let go of some of the anger and resentment and not feeling like I was valued. And when I realized, oh, this is for me coming back later, it was like, oh, I didn't need to go to all those other places with it. And so it put a lot more positive energy on the whole process.
Mm-hmm. You're more in power of it.
Right. And well, that's the funny thing about surrender. There is control in surrender.
And that's the paradox, right?
Another
Exactly.
paradox.
That's another paradox.
I highly recommend listening to episode 58 in its entirety and picking up a copy of Kat's super easy to read book, Psychic Skills for Magic and Witchcraft. As I mentioned earlier, last July we featured tarot and oracle deck creators every week.
I know which one you're going to talk about. Wait, I have a psychic impression. It's going to be the yarn tarot.
Oh my gosh, you're right! Not only is it connected to the craft that I do more than anything else, but the guests, Katie and Jacob, were both so lovely. That's the deck right there. Yes,
look at how I
indeed.
have it right next to me at all times.
We had fun moments that share not only the back history of how you create a tarot deck, because unlike some of our guests, this one is getting published by a publisher. So instead of being self-published, we got to hear all the backstory of working with a bigger company. Enjoy this clip from Katie Ponder and Jacob Seifert from the Yarn Tarot Deck.
Katie, what brought you into the publishing world? What was your background up until the point where you decided to do this amazing yarn tarot deck?
Good question. So I grew up in London, and I think from the get-go, when I was born, on the day I was born, I decided art was the world I needed to be in. There was no alternative. I just wanted to do art. And I was always in trouble at school for drawing instead of doing my lessons. All my textbooks were full of mermaids and fairies. And as soon as I finished school, I went to art school down in Falmouth, which is right down in the south of England, in Cornwall, which is Cornwall is full of lots of fairy tales and folklore, and it's all a bit sort of magical. So I spent 3 years there studying illustration. Once I graduated from Falmouth, I thought a career in art, who knows if I'll make it, I'll have a backup. I started teaching yoga. I trained as a yoga teacher and was working full-time as a yoga teacher. And doing a little bit of illustration here and there and seeing, where can things go as an illustrator, but also not putting too much pressure on myself. And I eventually became friends with a really lovely illustration agency based in London called The Artworks, and started working with them a little bit. And eventually they signed me on as one of their artists. I think it was one of the sort of miracle moments of my life. Whoa, this is it. I actually get to be an illustrator. And The Artworks has a sister agency based in New York called Mandola. So through The Artworks and Mandola, I've been getting pretty much consistent work ever since as an illustrator. And it was Mandola that introduced me to the project with Jacob working on the tarot cards. Being that I've always loved all things magical, as soon as Mandola emailed me, I was like, would you like to work on a deck of tarot cards? I thought, yes, please. I would like that very much.
That's so exciting. So they reached out to you. How did the project start initially?
Yeah, where did the idea of yarn and tarot come together?
Originally, someone approached us with the idea. They reached out via Instagram and they said, hey, I would really like to do a knitting tarot deck. Would you be interested in that? I took that to my boss. This was a handful of years ago. And at that time, I was told no. So I was very disappointed. Flash forward a few years later. So Sixth and Spring Books is distributed by what was known as Sterling Publishing. They're now called Union Square. They actually have been publishing a lot of tarot decks and have really great success. They published the Modern Witch Tarot. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one.
A very successful deck that I love so much.
They have been doing just a whole series of tarot decks. So that became at the forefront of our mind. And I was like, what if we do this tarot deck now? So we reached back out to the original person who contacted us, and we tried to get something going with the project, but she wanted to do a knitting tarot deck. The terms of the contract weren't what we could offer what she wanted. So we parted ways, but we still wanted to do a tarot deck. So we went the route of doing the yarn tarot deck, not doing a knitting tarot deck like she had originally suggested, but trying to be much more inclusive of the yarn crafts. A lot of people will knit and crochet, or they'll crochet and spin, or people will knit and weave, or any sort of mixture of that. But the thing that unifies all of those is the love for yarn and like the obsession for yarn. So that's the direction we decided to go.
Katie and Jacob were so lovely. You'll definitely want to check out the full episode, which is episode 66, The Yarn Tarot.
And that entire month of deck creators. Such a
Yes.
great episode.
They're all super different interviews, very different art styles. You'll definitely want to check them all out. Coming up next, in an effort to have every member of my family on the show, we
Hey, this is nepotism.
What? How dare you?
When am I going to have my parents on the show?
Whenever they want. Let's get them on. Season 3. It's all about you and your family, Jim. So in this season, we started with my brother, and now halfway through, we have on my mother to talk about spooky snacks and boozy beverages. My mom was so much fun to have on because it was our first in-person episode, which was interesting, and I learned a lot. But she also tells great stories about some spooky snacks that she likes to make around Halloween. And I also do a live demo on a boozy beverage. So make sure you check out this clip and the full episode when you're done. First of all, I think we should reflect on why do we even bother making spooky snacks? Can't we just eat the same stuff all year round?
We can, but what's more fun than making something really cute and clever and a little different for certain times of years? Now, Halloween is coming. What's more prolific than having a few different cute hors d'oeuvres to share with your friends and family?
Yeah, I agree. You can anthropomorphize anything if you want to, as we found in researching for this episode. So why don't you start by sharing a couple of your favorite recipes with our listeners?
Going right to really easy but really cute. I always have crackers or little flatbread toast, and you get some cream cheese, do a schmear, kind of a ghosty creation on that cracker, and then take 2 capers, little eyeballs, stick it at the top, and you've got a really cute cracker. Another one is just mozzarella sticks. Everybody loves cheese. You take them, shred the top so it's like a hair, and again, get your capers, stick them on little eyeballs. Another one that I like is chocolate graham crackers. Ooh, melt some chocolate, do crisscrosses on there like it's the
sutures?
Stitches.
Yeah.
Sutures. Another one is cute on a skewer. You take little chunks of, say, salami or ham, maybe 3 chunks, put it on the skewer, take some creamy Italian dressing and drizzle it over there, making it look like a mummy, an olive on the top, and a little dressing on where you're going to put the eyeballs, and capers. Again, capers are really your friend because they're little eyeballs. I personally like witch's fingers. I usually do it on a cheese ball, and then stick the fingers all around. It can be like cheese straws or whatever. And then at the end, for the fingernail, use an almond. And then on the cheese ball itself, again, another friend along with your capers is your pimento stuffed olives.
Yes.
So put a couple eyeballs on your cheese balls. You put your witch's fingers all around there.
It's the only time where it's okay to stick your finger into a cheese ball.
That is true. Don't re-dip. They're easy snacks, nothing hard, doesn't take more than a few minutes to do all of them. And you look like a rock star. Your friends are enjoying it immensely. It's a good thing.
So again, that was episode 78, Spooky Snacks and Boozy Beverages.
Your mom is so cute. I loved watching this episode and you two in the kitchen. I felt like I could just be right there. So I'm definitely going to visit.
Oh.
And this episode is why.
I'm glad I can convince you that's the right choice because they are definitely awesome. And I'm glad that it came through in this episode. Yeah.
So don't miss episode 78 featuring Katie and her mom, Connie, at Halloween time, making all kinds of boozy, spooky snacks.
All right. Up next, I have a snippet from episode 83, Water Magic, featuring our guest author, Lilith Dorsey. I think back to this story so often when she's talking about how to make waters, magical waters, especially as someone who uses waters for blocking knitted items. It's totally mind-blowing. So I hope other knitters and crafters enjoy this snippet too.
For sure.
There's been lots of scientific studies. Even if they just speak positive things to water, it changes its molecular structure. I feel like if I'm capturing it at that time, I'm having that good vibes or those travel vibes, whatever it is I'm trying to capture in that moment, it'll stay in the water. And the other thing I love about water is you can always make more water because scientifically it always retains the character from the original water. So I could take that tiny bottle of water I got from Amsterdam, add a bunch of tap water to it. It'll literally, like, if you break it down, show exactly where it came from. It just layers on top of itself. And I love that property because I can't think of anything else that really does that. It's diluted, but it's like geometrically improved.
One drop of Amsterdam will make the entire gallon of water into Amsterdam water.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've had people over the years tell me, oh, they have water from Greece and Ireland, or they have water from some other sacred site. And I was just like, you can make more water. You don't have to be sitting there like praying it doesn't evaporate. You can top it up and have more of that water, you know? And I just think that's so beautiful.
As she says in this clip, you can always make more water. Just add more water.
Lilith is so inspiring. This entire episode continues to be amazing. She is such a tremendous resource. You have to listen to episode 83, Water Magic with Lilith Dorsey. Go back right now, listen to that episode.
You'll definitely be inspired to pick up a copy of her book, also called Water Magic, when you're done. I promise you won't regret it. It's so inspiring. All right, Jim. This next selection may seem a little weird because I actually wasn't in this episode.
Oh, you picked one from my episode where you weren't there?
That's right. I'm selecting episode 81, Spirits,
Woo!
Ghosts, and More with Michelle Welch. I was super excited for this interview, Jim, because I have a little bit of a wild side of my metaphysical self, and Michelle was willing to go there with me. Unfortunately, Hurricane Ian had other ideas, which prevented me from actually being able to record. However, Jim was awesome to do his part in asking my questions, and I appreciate that.
This is the question that Katie is so sad she can't be here for. Aliens, multidimensional beings, and star seeds. I look at this topic from a purely scientific perspective. Personally, I'm pretty sure there's life in the universe besides us. I have not experienced personally interaction with multidimensional or aliens, and yet in the metaphysical world, there's lots of people that have had those experiences. Tell us a story that changed your mindset about these.
Interestingly enough, when I was younger, my grandfather, this is the beginning of it, he was a preacher. And in his Bible, it said something about aliens on the side. And I showed it to my dad. To this day, my dad will say he did not write that note in the Bible, but he did. And he believed in aliens. What I think is most important to talk about is how have I experienced them personally, not whether or not we believe in them. And so I believe first in parallel universes. That was very easy for me to believe that we're doing the same thing, but different in parallel universes. And then multiverse, because quantum physicists believe that and quantum mechanics believe that, string theory, entanglement theory, and all that comes from the magic of connection. Of course, I believe that too. But have I had a personal relationship with different beings? Not every being. And for a while, I just didn't give a darn. I was like, I've got enough people to keep up with. All these spirits around me, all these other, I don't need to know. But I will tell you, in the past, probably about 5-6 years, I have become much more aware personally. I've never been abducted. I've never seen a UFO. Now they're called UAEs. I think the government changed the name of them. Of course, they've admitted they're there, but they haven't admitted the beings are there. Then why do I know about them? Now, this is where you're going to be like, oh, please, Michelle. I have seen people's faces shift. Literally shift. I was going to say I'm not talking about like Elon Musk or anything, but I'm not talking about the conspiracy theories. I'm not into those. I've seen what I used to describe myself as an angelic type of being change forms that looks very a mixture of alien. And why do we say alien? Extraterrestrial. It just doesn't feel like it's from here. But then again, how do I know if it's from here? Maybe they've been here the whole time and walking amongst us. I'll tell you another one. If you touch the nape of someone's neck, like right back here, some people call that the God spot. They kind of cup your hands under their head. You can feel energy. I get nauseous. And you know who I can feel it on? Roger. And we were told one time by somebody, and it sounded so stupid, that Roger, I think is, what is he? Reptilian, which isn't always one of the good ones. Just so you know, I wouldn't mess with Roger either. And they said I was more like Faye. And I was like, oh, please, this would be a good story, but I don't believe the words you're saying. And I don't know if that's all true, but I can feel that energy on me. So how do I know? And how do I know about the different ones? I channel it. I'm open to them, but I've seen just shifts in people's face. It's almost like a shape shifting where they reveal that they're here. And it's new to me. To put it in the book, I took it in, I took it out, I took it in, I took it out. But I will say, because I know what I've seen personally.
There have been a lot of people who've been connecting with extraterrestrial consciousness through meditation. And that is fascinating to me. And I do think about how we might be able to do that outside of our regular perception, and that perhaps this is a way to communicate. So it's very fascinating to me. And I don't want to disparage it, of course. And I think it is another way to access how humans can connect and can perceive things that we've been not perceiving in the mainstream ways.
Yeah, I agree. My book is in no way an encyclopedia of beings, but think about it. Why wouldn't there be some sort of alien, extraterrestrial being when we believe in fate? I think it's what we're interested in and what we're in the mood or where we are in our life to connect with. And it's okay if somebody doesn't want to connect with one and they want to connect with another type of being. It's okay.
Michelle is definitely a guest I want to have on again soon.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want to actually talk to her.
About the UFOs.
That's right. I want to talk aliens. I want to talk ghosts. I want to get weird with it. And I know she's just the person to do it with me. I want to plan ahead. How many arms are these beings going to have from these different planets or whatever? Is it 3? Is it 12? I want to plan ahead. I want to make sweaters inclusive for everybody.
Okay, so you're going to knit some peace sweaters for the aliens when they come to visit and colonize our planet.
Maybe if I look like I'm useful, they'll keep me around for a while. Look what she does with her hands. Makes fabric. Weird.
Wow.
I'll keep her.
I'm so glad you love that episode. Michelle Welch is genius. So episode 81.
Yep, not to miss. All right, Jim. Wrapping up my selection of guest episodes is our most recent in-person attempt, which is episode 100, Slots of Luck.
It wasn't an attempt. It was a success. That was a great episode.
My partner and camera person in this episode, which was all about testing our luck in Las Vegas and seeing if a coin flip could accurately pick a slot machine. And spoiler alert, I won't spoil it. I'll let this next clip tell you what it's all about. All right, we're going to do our last slot machine on the big wheel machine. Woo! It's a bench seat, so I can even have my beautiful camera woman join me while we play our last 20 to see how we do. And don't forget to use your Plaza Rewards card. I wonder if it'll take the bill upside down. Not picky. Good to know.
We're so glad you stopped by. Let's have some fun.
6 spins. Let's do it. Wow. Keeping us in. All right, number 4. Ooh. We're so close. Oh. All right, last one. All right. Now let's see how we did.
We hope to see you back here real soon.
All right, we're up $3 on this one. We have all of our vouchers reloaded into the machine to see what our grand total win/loss was.
So long, and thanks for playing.
We put $120 in total and are coming out with 86. We're down total for the session, but you know what? Coin flipping is not the worst way to pick out which slot machine might win versus not. In fact, I might say it's as good as odd as any. Good luck. I'd still love to know if any of our listeners have tried any magic in Vegas or gambling and had any luck. What did you do? Remember, you can always drop us an email at knittaspellpodcast@gmail.com to let us know. This was fun, and like I said, How do we pick just a handful of amazing and talented, generous guests that we've had on here? It's near impossible, which hopefully just inspires people to listen to all of them.
That's right. And fortunately, we have another episode next week where I will share some, not all, of my favorites. And we'll maybe even talk about some that we left out.
We will see you guys in next week's episode. Until then, Jim, see you next week.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thanks for
listening.
If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.